vision for the Shoestrings theme for this event today really came from James and Andrew on your Technology Market Interest Group board. And I think they saw a common issue that was shared by two very different types of company. On the one hand, there was the small startup, maybe without the technical marketing expertise and without the budget to acquire that expertise. And then maybe in larger, more established companies with established marketing teams or maybe even departments that in the current economic climate were facing some significant budget pressures and had to look to do things more cost effectively. And I can resonate with both those two scenarios, and I think the theme seems to have resonated with those on the LinkedIn group as well. I do some volunteering with the Prince's Trust as a business mentor and do a lot of work with young people who have no marketing budget or experience, but tons and tons of passion to create something of their own. I believe that technology companies have a higher concentration, if you like, of brainpower than many types of company, and how that brainpower is applied to solve customer problems interests me. How that message is then taken to the marketplace and you engage with your customer base and prospect base. And finally, how you be unique, truly unique and different and outshine the competition. First of all, outthink. People either, in my view, start a business because they have a passion for solving a problem or building something that they have a very strong sense of opinion about. Larger companies may see a gap in the market, a weakness in a competitor product or offering, and try and fill that gap through the development of a new product. These things give you opinions on which you can talk about with huge confidence because you're an expert in that subject matter. And by choosing those areas to develop new businesses or develop new products, by default, I would argue, you're entering into the territory of thought leadership. So don't be afraid to have an opinion and to express that opinion as you take your business to the marketplace. I talked as well about how brainpower within tech firms can be used to solve customer problems. Rather than necessarily a purely technical solution, someone from the LinkedIn group, Jane Bromley, who I don't think is here today. Oh, Jane, thank you for the... Sorry, I didn't see you on the registration list. Jane kindly contributed to the debate online, and she said that it's more about ensuring companies understand their customers' pain better than the competition. If you then can use this insight to engage those intelligent technical brains, that is when I have seen companies outstrip the competition by miles. So this isn't purely technology for technology's sake, but that clever application of that brain power to solve customer problems in a better or different way. Customer insight and building that customer insight in from the outset is something that I think is crucial, and you'll hear more from some of our panel members on that later, I'm sure. As Diane mentioned, I've spent a fair amount of time in financial services, in B2B financial services, and was often frustrated at the lack of customer insight that went into the latest new product or proposition that we were trying to launch into the marketplace. If that customer insight is built in from the outset, you cannot help but build something that is different and unique and better. I know there's some quite famous people in the opposite school of thought. Henry Ford, I believe, said that if he'd have asked people what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse. I think Steve Jobs said if he'd have asked people what they want, they wouldn't have known unless he'd shown them. I worked in a large corporate marketing team with about 80 people in head office on the 4th floor, and I called it the 4th floor mentality. Very rarely did they leave the 4th floor unless it was to go to lunch, go home, or go to the agency. They certainly never spoke to salespeople, and they certainly never spent any time with customers. Yet they felt qualified to pore over in quite some agonizing detail copy, creative, and other communications targeting these people that they'd never even met or spoken to. And for those of you who are in those larger businesses, who are in those marketing departments, my plea to you would be, if you don't have a personal development objective in your plan for this year to meet customers more, then please put one in tomorrow. The good news, I guess, around content marketing from a Shoestrings perspective is that, according to this survey, which is B2B, from Marketing Profs and the Content Marketing Institute, according to this survey, over 80% of the responses didn't feel that budget was a challenge. In fact, by far the leading challenge that marketers felt was there in content marketing was producing the kind of content that engages prospects and customers. Now, I would argue if you're getting out more, if you're using 2 ears and 1 mouth in that proportion, and you're actually understanding your customers' pain and pressure points, you can't help but write content that talks to those pressure points. This question is to Julia. When we link back to the outthink theme, we talked about the importance of having user involvement from the outset. Do you think it's possible to develop a new product without it taking 18 months or spending a fortune on market research? What kind of approach would you recommend?
How would I do it?
Yeah.
Well, there's a couple of kind of key bandwagons that I jump on. We're playing bingo buzzword, by the way, so I think I did a few there. Is that allowed? And really I'm picking up on the theme about engaging users right from the beginning. And I talk to a lot of people who say, yeah, we've got users involved in our beta and so on. That's not what I mean. That's one element of it. That's usability. Okay, but I'm talking about the minute you think you know what you want to do with your product, you put the concept in front of the user. You don't need a prototype. Do not spend a lot of time building anything. Draw it on a bit of paper, write a paragraph. It's that sort of thing. And from there, you keep going back regularly. Okay, and you've got to be strict about it.
Marketers often describe themselves as having the voice of the customer and being closest to the voice of the customer. But in your experience, how good are marketers actually at doing this?
When it comes to new product development, I agree that you need structures and you need strategy and you need direction within that process. Whether it's the CEO or whether it's a team of people, I think the most important point of it is that everybody involved in it is talking to the customers. Yeah. And I agree with you in terms of the maximum times that you can gain contribution from your customers is absolutely the key determinant as to whether a product or a service will actually fly. One of the points I was going to make is that I think there's been a paradox over the last few years in that in many ways marketeers are not as close to customers as they'd like to think they are or as they once were. If you look at the ongoing debate about the poor relationship between sales and marketing functions in companies of any size, that issue is not resolved, that relationship is not good, and in technology companies in particular, it's not a great relationship. And part of that is the pressure that we as marketeers are actually under all the time. Your point about budget cuts at the start, it's not just the budget you've got, it's the number of people that you've got. Most companies have got a very small number of marketeers. So when they're faced with the huge challenge of taking a company and its products and services to market, what do? They talk amongst themselves. If they've got an agency, they talk to the agency. They maybe do some online research. But what they don't necessarily do, and what they find it very hard to do, is to find the time to talk to their customers. The result is that numerous campaigns, and we've all seen them, loads of campaigns that are out there, that they look quite good, but when you dig under the surface, the actual message, the actual meaning doesn't resonate. Somebody made the comment earlier on, customers do loads of customer satisfaction surveys, so what? What do they actually tell you? Most of the time they tell you what you already think you know or want to know.
It's the anecdotal data.
Exactly. There is no substitute to actually getting on that phone, or better, meeting people and saying, what do you really think? Ask them what, if you're representing your company, ask them what service have you delivered in the last 3 months that has exceeded their expectations? And what's really annoyed them? You'll learn an awful lot from those 2 questions, particularly the second one.
But my question is, with a small team in the marketing team, which is me and 2 other people, they're worried that if lots of people start tweeting at us that, oh, something just broke, blah, 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 we don't have the resources. You know those examples you showed earlier? We don't really have the resources to come back in 10 minutes or, be really quick. So are we opening ourselves up to, now there are people hanging around on Twitter that are really annoyed and we can't answer them. So what would be your advice for, it's not a budget problem here, it's a resources problem, really. So how would you engage using social media when you don't really have massive teams to sit around answering questions?
So you're looking at it sideways. The question is not how do you get the resources to do what you need to do. The question is what on earth is going to happen if you don't.
If you don't. Yeah.